welcome back to Hollywood Impact for another merger for Hollywood Impact and Split Screen, because we have Zach Edwards. So, Zach, the Fallout show just recently came out, and we wanted to get this a little bit earlier, but there were some unfortunate, external circumstances. But we both had the chance to finish this show recently. We will start with some spoiler-free thoughts.
Yep.
Thoughts, Zach.
Thoughts. Coming into this show, I was kind of nervous. I wasn't convinced by the trailer, and I guess there was a clip they released. I never saw the clip, and it was like super cheesy. I think it's from the shootout in at the first town where they all meet, and like you see the power armor flying, and that was probably like the weakest CGI moment in the whole show. And that's I'm pretty sure that's the clip they showed.
Yeah.
And so people were like, "Oh man, this show's gonna be bad. Like it's not gonna be a good adaptation."
I was nervous about it too. Yeah.
But I'm pleased to say I really enjoyed Fallout.
It's pretty good.
Like it's awesome. I mean, I love the games. Well, I say the games. Mainly Fallout 4 is one of my favorite games of all time. And just if you would have asked me, what I would have wanted the most from a Fallout TV show, like if they could get one thing right, what would I want it to be? And it would absolutely be the world, the aesthetic, the feel of Fallout, and they nailed it. I mean, it is Fallout through and through. You would think that
it's a brutal world.
You would think that Bethesda made this show. They had a hand in it. Todd Howard played a part, and they definitely, you could tell the people played the games.
For sure.
But it's still someone else's project. And I mean, it is literally Fallout to a T. Whenever they're in the vaults walking around, it looks like you're in Vault 111, looks like you're in Vault 76. And it's
very immersive.
Yes,
for sure.
Very immersive.
Every person who was contracted to be, an actress for this show, I mean, I cannot think of a single bad actress in this entire show. Everything is done really well because the actors convince you that, they're really in this world. And that's something, because sometimes you watch fantasy things where, especially based on a video game, where someone plays more of a caricature of these characters. It ain't like that here. This is actually immersive, well done, well crafted.
Yes.
For sure. So, in going through all, with all the characters, it has a mix of not just one game, because I was a little bit afraid it was going to be based purely on Fallout 4. It's not. It's got references and elements picked out from every single one of the games, and I think that's a good thing. The main character, she's really good. She's very funny, but she's also she is a genuinely wholesome, good person. And I like that, there's this other character, which you should know by the trailers, played by Walton Goggins, known as the Ghoul. And his moral standard and hers are so just completely different, contrast each other completely. And it's fun to see them both develop a little bit of each other's personality, even though they only come together like a handful of times. But in those times that they are on screen with each other, they influence each other just a little bit, and you can tell. And all these characters are so convincing. Walton Goggins, by the way, he is so good.
Oh my gosh!
Holy cow! Is he the unspoken, the unsung hero? He's the unsung hero of this show, I think, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't want to say unsung, but he's definitely an unsung actor that we have in this generation.
Yes.
So underrated, underutilized. This man is good.
Yes.
Holy cow. Holy cow.
And I think that his performance is so good that it almost takes down the others. Because I've seen some of the criticisms are that Walton Goggins carries the show. And sure, he's definitely the best part, no doubt. I mean, just his performance is so good. It's exactly what you want from an anti-hero character. And I mean, he definitely has my favorite scenes for sure. And anytime he's on the screen, because there's a lot more of the past than I thought there'd be.
There is.
And it's basically all him, and it's some of the best parts of the show. And it's not even you're not even in the Fallout world yet. I mean, you're in the world, but it's a lot. I mean, the games are Wasteland,
Right.
It's pre-bomb. And I mean, that's a good third of the show is before the bombs dropped. And it's just, his performance is so good that like you almost don't notice how good the other characters are. And because it's so perfect, like the naive vault dweller and the kid who grew up with the Brotherhood of Steel and is kind of weird and doesn't quite know what he thinks about the world. I mean, it's literally 3 different main characters that encompass like different things of Fallout.
Absolutely, like different parts of the world. And I think that's extremely effective because like our main character, she is a vault dweller. And so, she lives a very sheltered life, like a very normal life, compared to the rest of the world. And the ghoul, he's our view of seeing how the world went from point A to point B. And how someone who was there during point A would react and would change during that time. And I love Maximus. It took me a second to really get into his character, but I really like him.
Yeah, he's the slowest start of the show. I would agree, but he ends up. Yeah, you like Maximus.
Yes, and he lives in a specific part of this world as well. He's not like full like wasteland type, but he's also not a vault dweller. He's not naive, but he's also not like psychopathic.
Right.
He makes some certain choices, but by the end of the show, like you really appreciate his character, and you're excited to see more of him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but I think we should definitely go into some spoiler territory here. Because there's a few things I want to talk about. So the spoiler-free stops here. Please go see it if you have not watched it, and whenever you do watch it, come back and watch this part, and the review will be at the very, very end. So let's get into some spoiler territory. Okay. Is there anything specific you want to talk about?
Right before we get into spoilers, Angry Joe, he talked about the immediate comparison of this show is to The Last of Us, because that was the last, well, I say the last. Halo Season 2 has been out since The Last of Us. Okay. But The Last of Us was probably the most well-regarded video game adaptation. And the way Angry Joe put it, which I didn't really think of it, but it's a really good point, is that the expectation for Last of Us was so high, and you already have like the best and most well-written story in a video game to go off of, and so like they had it easy. As long as you just stick with the game, you got it. But really? Fallout, like you have all these games, and not particularly known for story, even though they have some good story elements. The whole world was their oyster for what they could do, and I just think they nailed it. And so that might level my score, a little higher.
Interesting.
But it's just, something to think about. Like, this, and everyone thought the show would fail.
Right.
And not really, a particular reason.
It's a nice surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think conceptually, I think that Fallout had it easier. And my reasoning behind this is with The Last of Us, that's so well regarded. When your expectations are this high,
right, you got to hit them.
You have to hit it, because if you do not hit that, like, if your fans think that your game is like a 9 out of 10, right, or like a 10 out of 10, and this epic show comes out with a lot of good actors, a lot of good production and everything, if it's not a 9 or a 10 out of 10, if it's anything less than like an 8, it's a failure.
Yeah, hell on earth.
And because people who love the games, the people who love games, their community is way different than film communities.
Yeah.
And so they will tear it to shreds.
Yeah.
Especially with adaptations like that. So I think Fallout had it easier because it's much easier to have a nice surprise, because if people saw the trailer and thought, oh, like this show is gonna, like, it has to be perfect, it has to be great. I don't think anyone expected this show to be as good as it was.
Right.
And because of that, it had, like a sneaky advantage.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, actually, like, it's a good surprise because it's not just expected. Then it gives more of a reaction to the media, who's like, oh, this is actually good. And then all of a sudden you have a spike of people who watch it.
Yeah.
And I think that's better overall. So I actually think I would give the advantage to Fallout in this case. But yeah, I totally understand that.
Yeah, because I didn't look at it that way. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you're kind of right. You know, like it's just, so you have a really streamlined story, and then you have a not so streamlined, very open RPG. Yeah. So as Okay.
Yeah, it is very different.
Anyway, now spoilers.
Spoilers.
No.
Well, spoilers.
We were joking earlier. But so one of the biggest gripes with the show is how they handled the bombs dropping. Now, granted, whenever I rewatched the last episode with you, at first when I watched, I didn't think they for certain mentioned that Vault Tech dropped the bombs. I thought it's just, the Cooper Howard, is that the ghoul's name?
Yeah, Coop.
His wife said, why don't we drop the bombs? But then it's kind of like I didn't catch another line where it's confirmed. But whenever I watched it with you again, someone else says, Vault Tech dropped the bombs. And in the games, it's the Chinese that drop the bombs and invade America. But so some people are mad about that, and a lot of people talk about the timeline. But really, I don't care about the timeline. I'm not
me neither.
I'm not a Fallout 1 and 2 fan where the Chinese dropped the bombs and Frank Horrigan died in this year and just different stuff that's going to come up later potentially. But I just that stuff doesn't bother me.
I'm personally not a huge Fallout fan in general. I've never fully finished the main storyline to any Fallout game. I did a lot of New Vegas when it first came out because a friend of mine had it and he let me borrow it. Did a bit of Fallout 3. Fallout 4 was the one I think I played the most, but I didn't get the most into the storyline. I kept replaying this big chunk and just going in different directions, and my interest faltered a little bit because I'm more of a Skyrim guy.
Yeah.
So the mechanics of those two games are way different, and Skyrim's is a little simpler to understand, I think. So I appreciated that more. So I had low expectations of this going in, and seeing how the story plays out with Vault Tech being the ultimate villains and the ghoul trying to find his wife who is pretty much responsible for the whole thing.
Right.
One of the most haunting lines in the show is when someone said that the wasteland and the vault is the product of Vault Tech. And I'm like, that's wild.
Yeah.
They literally said, oh, we're going to destroy the world as we know it so that our company can be, so that we can be the last ones available to re-inherit the earth and rule as we please.
Yeah.
Which inherently is a stupidly flawed plan.
Right, yeah. It's
there's so many different people with different factions that are fighting. What if we're all just unified? And so since we're all unified, why don't we just do everything differently in every single vault? That makes no sense.
Yeah. The ultimate monopoly.
but it's not supposed to make sense. And that's why you're not on their side at all. These are bad people.
Yeah.
They're absolutely evil, corporate greed people. But actually, do you know what my favorite part about this show was?
What's that?
Was not the ghoul.
Okay.
Was not our main character. Was not Maximus. My favorite part of this show was everything with Norm. With the main character's brother, who is stuck behind in Vault 33, figuring out what's going on behind the scenes.
Yes.
Was the most fascinating part of this entire show, in my opinion. I love the ghoul. I love the acting. I love everything that happens on the surface. A lot of good action, lots of cool pieces of storytelling. But Norm is really the one who's putting all the background scenes together. And the way it's happening is actually, if I'm using this word correctly, but it's scary.
Yeah.
It makes the show more of a thriller.
Yes.
A psychological, horror film almost. It's messed up, disturbing. Yeah. So that was my favorite part of the show.
Well, and I mean, Walton Goggins just in general is my absolute favorite part, but favorite storyline is definitely Norm's arc, because it starts off as the weakest part in the first 4 episodes. And then I think it's in episode 4 whenever him and the cousin sexual guy.
Yeah.
Weird jokes.
Yeah, the weird.
But you get used to it because that's the world.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's episode 4 when they go into Vault 32 and everyone's dead and they've been dead for years.
Yeah.
And it's what's going on? How do we not know about this? When did the Raiders actually get here? And it becomes the best story whenever it connects everything together. And at the end, Norm's in Vault 31, and you find out that every big executive and just higher up from Vault Tech has been cryogenically frozen in
Yeah.
Vault 31, controlled by a brain on a Roomba, is what the subtitles called it,
Yeah.
which is hilarious. You wouldn't know that if you didn't have subtitles on, because I had no clue. And then subtitles, brain on a Roomba. That's the literal character name in the show.
That's great.
And it's haunting all these people, and they're the ones that become the overseer of 33. And then
Correct.
Norm, you kind of forget about it by the end of the show because of the New Vegas reveal with
Yeah.
her dad going there. But Norm's stuck in that vault at the end of the show.
Yeah.
And like there's no resolution.
He's stuck and he's seeing all these people, and like their plan is like, oh, like once everything's kind of wiped itself out, then we'll bring all these people back and they will inherit the world.
Yeah.
And that's so scary.
Yeah.
And to think that every person, even the person who is a regular part of his community, that when their leader disappeared, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, we'll have these 3 people kind of do like an election to see who is going to be the new overseer. But you realize like every piece of that was already planned almost. And because he looks at all the pods and you can see the names. And you can see that the person who becomes the overseer of his vault was one of those people.
Yeah.
And it's mind-blowing, but that's what makes this show so great, is because you don't need to play the games to enjoy this show.
That's probably
Take
the
it from
greatest.
me.
That's the greatest strength.
Oh my
honestly.
gosh. It's weird. Oh, it's so weird. It's gory. It's gory. It's so freaking weird. There's a lot of inappropriate like sexual jokes here and there or whatever.
But not like your typical jokes.
no,
like
no.
they're stupid.
They're silly and sometimes they're subtle. And then it just moves on, like
Yeah,
not
it just-
acknowledging its
yeah.
own joke. It just kind of like it acts like it's casual because that's the world they live in.
And that's how the games are.
So, I mean, it is a fascinating show, but who knew that Rico from Hannah Montana was going to...
Rico, my boy Rico.
my boy Rico was going to be my MVP of this show. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I mean, so fascinating.
It really came out of left field because it was the weakest right off the bat, and then it quickly
Became
turned into the
like-
strongest.
Like, every time that stuff was on the screen, if I missed any of it, I had to play it back. I had to see exactly what was going on. Because everything he said, during, like, I think episodes, like, I'd say 3 through 8.
Yeah.
Every part of it was important.
Yes,
you had to
very
know
important.
Every detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think I'm ready to give a score for this show.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
Okay.
I almost gave it a 9. I was very close, but I do have small nitpicks. Sometimes the pacing in the first few episodes can be a little bit strange.
A lot of back and forth.
Yeah, and like most shows, things take a little bit of time to mesh together, which is not normally a problem. But I think it was just the direction in the first few episodes was a little bit unclear to me. Like there were some things that it kind of quickly gets resolved later. So I felt like they had some things a little bit more open ended. But in general, the whole story is crafted pretty well. It's just a little clunky at first. Some of the acting and some of the crude jokes and scenes kind of take me out of it just a bit. It's weird enough to keep you engaged,
Right.
But it pulls you out of the scene for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, but I'm so excited to see more. So
Yes.
excited. And I think that season 2 could be even better than season 1.
I
So,
agree. I agree because they definitely left some stuff, that can make it better. And
sure.
I'm so glad that we use half points because I found myself floating between an 8 and a 9.
Yeah.
So I'm also going to give it an 8
Let's
and a half.
go. Agreed.
And it's my only nitpicks are mainly game related. A big part of Fallout is the monsters. Death Claws, first thing that anybody thinks of. Super mutants. I think of like the Mirelurk Queen.
Yep.
And basically none of that was in the show. I know there's like a super mutant hand you see on a stretcher at one point, and you see obviously the Death Claw skull at the end. But I really hope they have a lot more of the world, the dangers
Yeah.
of the world in the next season.
Sure.
And I think they will. I mean, obviously they showed the Death Claw skull for a reason, at the
Right.
very end. And it's, definitely the pacing can be weird. And oddly enough, the best action scene is early. It's in that town.
Yeah.
And I love how the slow-mo, it looks just like using VATS in Fallout. It's perfect. Seeing the bullet fly and just, obliterating these guys, going through his chest and then cutting a dude's skull in half.
Yeah.
At first, it's almost like, holy crap, this is really gory.
No, yeah, it holds nothing back.
But whenever you think about the game, it's gory.
That's how it is.
It's just a. But
It's a
the
rated M
game,
game, isn't it?
Yeah. And the game is just, it's different whenever it's a video game. The graphics, especially, Bethesda's not known for graphics, and the last, Fallout 5 or Fallout 4 came out in 2015.
Yeah.
And so that's a while back. And so, it's just, sure, you shoot limbs off, but, you don't, notice the grotesqueness of it, but you do in this show.
No, yeah.
And yeah, so the action kind of gets weird, and I don't love the last action scene between the NCR and the Brotherhood of Steel. It's too short.
Yeah, and I wish we had more
the
context.
Flags running at each other was just kind of goofy. It's kind of cool for a moment, but
there's a moment where two people are running into battle with holding flags, but they're first in line, and I'm like, what do you plan on doing?
Yeah.
It's not capture the flag.
Right.
Someone's getting stabbed or shot,
and they don't kill each other. They don't try to stop each other. They just run past.
Yeah,
it's just clearly for a shot.
Yeah, but that's neither here nor there.
Right, nitpicking.
Right, but this show does such a great job of taking a very open world, strange game and making good, well-rounded characters that have good personalities, different personalities.
Yes.
Very clear motivations,
Yes.
and you get invested in every person's story.
Yeah.
Every single main person story, which I find to be just the main character, the ghoul, Norm, Maximus. All four of their stories are equally compelling in different ways. I find Norm's to be a little bit better, but the ghoul's personal story is probably the best. I think that what Norm gets involved in is my favorite.
Yes.
But I think all of their stories are all emotional, heartfelt. And you really get to see what the Wasteland does to people.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good show.
Yeah.
Please go watch it. If you haven't played the games, doesn't matter. Go watch it. It's really good.
It's just a good, entertaining show.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a great watch, regardless of playing the games or not.
And look out in the future, because maybe we have some new Fallout gameplay with Zach and maybe a few of us. So
quite possibly.
Yes, and if you'd like to, please like and comment and subscribe so that you can help keep this content going and support us. We are still in our early stages, and we want to be able to do this for a long time and be able to give this kind of content to you guys as soon as we can. So please help support that. Zach, thanks for coming on again.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
All right, see you guys later.